To avoid being chosen in the palace draft, I married Lu Jingheng, my brother's closest friend. 4 years of marriage, he treated me the same and never took a concubine. I thought my life was complete, until the news of Grand Dowager Sun's death arrived. Lu Jingheng vomited a mouthful of blood. On his deathbed he refused to see me, only sending a message: "What was owed to your Lin family has been fully repaid. Lin Xuan, if there is a next life, don't use kindness to coerce me again, only." Then did I learn that Lu Jingheng had never truly loved me. Back then, because he married me, he could only watch Sun Ruoqing enter the palace and become the consort of the aging emperor. After the emperor's passing, she was trapped in the inner palace for the rest of her life. Lu Jingheng resented me for a lifetime. I returned to the day my brother had him come to propose. He sighed softly and was about to accept. I said calmly, "There's no need for Lord Lu to trouble himself. I am willing to enter the palace and become a consort." Perhaps they did not expect me to refuse. In the main hall, the two others looked stunned and both turned to look at me. My brother's brow knitted tightly. He spoke first. "Xuan, this is not something for you to make a fuss about. The draft is imminent. If you were chosen to enter the palace, would you really go to attend the emperor in bed? He's old enough to be our father's father." I pursed my lips and warned softly, "Brother, be careful with your words." Lin Zhao's face went ashen. He turned away and said no more. How could I not understand his worries? But even if we tied our families together, it would be no more than jumping from one fire pit into another. No one knew that in the last life, the seemingly well-off young madam had not lived well. I sighed softly, bowed to Lu Jingheng, and was about to take my brother away. His eyes shifted slightly as he asked, "Miss Lin, are you sure?" Lu Jingheng stood in place, his bearing cold and noble. Though he asked, his actions showed little intent to stop us. I had seen this expression too many times in my past life and had often misread it. Now I could easily read the emotion in his eyes. Lu Jingheng did not wish to marry me, neither in the past life nor in this one. Thinking this, I nodded slightly and answered softly, "I've decided. This is a matter of the Lin family, a private matter of mine. Lin Xuan, it should not involve you. Young Lord Lu can go and marry the woman he likes without worry." Lu Jingheng's expression was complicated. On closer look, he actually breathed a sigh of relief. He asked no more, saw us out of the residence, and watched us get into the carriage before turning to leave. The moon hung above the willow tips. The road back to the manor was quiet. The carriage swayed. For 2 segments of time, my brother didn't speak. It was only when the carriage was about to reach the Lin residence that he seemed finally unable to hold back and spoke in a deep voice. "Why refuse this marriage? You and Lu Jingheng grew up together, your families are of equal standing, and the two houses already intended to form ties. Couldn't this be a way to avoid the selection for brides? Besides, I'm on good terms with him, and the Lin family owes the Yongning Marquis's household a life debt. If you married into his house, you wouldn't be bullied." I lifted the carriage curtain and turned my head to look at the night scenery along the street. The cold wind hit my face, bringing back that old matter from a few years ago. At that time, the Yongning Marquis was implicated in Prince Chang's plot and was detained by the Ministry of Justice. Lu Jingheng ran about trying to save his father. This angered the emperor. Noble families who had once been close to the Yongning Marquis's household distanced themselves to protect themselves. The aloof, proud youth was driven to desperation and finally came to the Lin residence, where acquaintances were to be found. I only remember that it rained heavily that day. Lu Jingheng stood straight despite being drenched. His clear voice came through the rain, growing louder with each shout. "Junior Lu Jingheng requests an audience with Minister Lin." He still stood at the gate 2 hours later. Perhaps he was annoyed, perhaps moved by pity. I begged my father to help Lu Jingheng. He was always indecisive. After hearing my plea, he sighed lightly and directly ordered the gate opened, leading Lu Jingheng into the Lin residence. I later learned that Lu Jingheng had sought help from many people, and only the Lin household reached out. In those days, my father and brothers ran themselves ragged on behalf of the Lu family, and the two families' friendship was forged as a result. After the matter was settled, my eldest brother joked, "Brother Lu, you should thank Shu Wn too." She persuaded father. I was eating pastries attentively. Hearing that, I looked up reflexively and happened to meet Lu Jingheng's deep, cold eyes. My heart suddenly racing, I don't know why, but I inexplicably thought of the rumors in the capital. Lu Jingheng, elegant as an orchid and handsome as a jade tree, eyes like bright stars, the dream of countless noble girls. I supposed the rumors were true. When we left the winehouse and were about to part, Lu Jingheng quietly gave me his personal jade pendant. Miss Lin, if you encounter trouble in the future, you may seek me out with this. I reached to take it, our fingertips touched for an instant, then hastily withdrew. Lu Jingheng lowered his gaze, his Adam's apple bobbed, and he instinctively avoided my eyes. After that day, he often entrusted my brother to bring me jewelry and pastries, even composing poems for me. So I always believed that Lu Jingheng and I were mutually enamored. Unexpectedly, it was only my one-sided wish. In this life, I would no longer coerce him with obligation. Lost in thought, my brother's voice sounded in my ear, half exasperated, half coaxing. Shu Wn, didn't you always say when you were young that after your coming of age you would marry Lu Jingheng? With that favor he owes you, he wouldn't dare refuse. Facing my brother's worried expression, I was momentarily speechless. Perhaps in his view, as long as we allied with the Prince of Yongning's household, all problems would be solved. But he did not know that if I married into that family, I would not live well either. After a moment's silence, I smiled without sound and feigned nonchalance as I answered, "Brother, forcing someone's hand is not the act of a gentleman. I have no interest in Mr. Lu. He has a girl he likes. Forcing us together would likely end badly." My brother furrowed his brow and insisted, "But entering the palace to compete won't end well either." I couldn't help but ask back, "How do you know entering the palace would be a bad thing?" Realizing he couldn't persuade me, he turned his head and said no more. The carriage stopped. Lin Zhao jumped down in a fury and returned to his courtyard. Father and mother learned the whole story from the messenger. At dinner their faces were uneasy, and several times they opened their mouths then stopped. Fortunately, my parents had always doted on me and rarely interfered with decisions I made. Still, when they saw me back to my courtyard, my mother secretly wiped away a tear. Shu Wn, you are the legitimate daughter of the magistrate's household, raised, spoiled and cherished by your parents. You deserve the best man in the world. I know the heir of the Lu household is unworthy of you. Marrying him, though a pragmatic choice, is better than entering the palace to serve that dying man. I was at a loss whether to laugh or cry, and quickly covered my mother's mouth, whispering, "Do not speak rashly of the emperor." Although those words were directed at me, if overheard by someone with intent, trouble would surely follow. Mother looked up at me and cried even harder. I sighed silently and soothed her gently. "Mother needn't worry so much. Whether I will be chosen is still uncertain." After coaxing her for half an hour, I finally persuaded her to calm down, though meant to reassure. What I had said was not mere idle talk. Entering the palace was the best choice right now. In my previous life, shortly after I married Lu Jingheng, the emperor died. The women of the harem were relocated to Sinying Palace to live out their days in comfort. The previous group of women selected into the palace were young and far from courtly strife, lived carefree lives in retirement, envied by many. As the mistress of the marquisate, I managed household affairs daily and dared not slacken, and because I had no children, I was often harshly criticized and tormented by my mother-in-law. Later, news came that Dowager Sun had been killed by mountain bandits while praying at a temple, and I could not help but feel sorrow. Sun Ruoqing had once been the most vivacious woman in the capital. Rumors said she insisted on being a proper wife and had a sweetheart. Unfortunately, because she was selected into the palace, her life was delayed, and at a young age she became a dowager. I had never connected these things with Lu Jingheng until I saw him clutch his chest, vomit blood, and faint. I tended him without taking off my clothes for 3 days. When he woke again, his voice hoarse, he urgently asked, "Ruqing, is she still alive?" He paid no heed to my exhaustion or my trembling hands holding the medicine bowl. I closed my eyes and answered calmly, "Sun Ruoqing is dead." At that, Lu Jingheng was stunned for a moment, then grabbed a pillow and struck me with it. "Get out, Lin Xuan, get out of my sight." After that, he refused to see me. I became the least welcome presence in the marquisate. Fortunately, Lu Jingheng lingered only 7 days. On his deathbed he still would not see me, only sending a message, "What I owed the Lin family has been repaid. Lin Xuan, if there is another life, do not use kindness to coerce me again." I was furious and kicked open his bedroom door to confront him face to face. Seeing me, disgust flashed quickly through his eyes. He summoned his last breath and coldly asked, "What more do you want? If you had not insisted on marrying me, Ruoqing would not have died lonely and unjust. The one who should have been selected back then was you, Lin Xuan. I owe you nothing. You owe Ruoqing her life." I laughed at that, and the questions I had prepared stuck in my throat. I knew there was no need to say more, so I stared at Lu Jingheng and smashed the jade pendant he had given me, and I spoke without mercy. "I came so you would not have peace before you died. In this life, with me around, you will never be with Sun Ruoqing." Those words hastened his death, yet I still felt I had been too kind. After Lu Jingheng died, I learned that he had long been secretly involved with Sun Ruoqing, using official business as an excuse to enter and leave the palace, to win the beauty's favor. He spent all the marquisate's spare money on her, buying her houses, shops, and land. With those assets, even with the reduction of the palace's monthly allowance, Sun Ruoqing still lived freely and elegantly. Even the children we adopted were of their blood. All of this I had utterly been unaware of. Even after Lu Jingheng's death, I had to endure daily slanders. They said I had killed my husband. The blame for having caused my husband's death spread throughout the capital, as things escalated, and nearly affected my brother's career. I was forced to be sent to a rural estate to recuperate, and within a few years I died in melancholy. In hindsight, indeed, worldly matters cannot be forced. The days for the selection are drawing near. A new restaurant opened in the capital and they hired chefs from Jiangnan. When my elder brother heard, he insisted on taking me to try it. I could not refuse and agreed, but just as the dishes were all served, a colleague came to him, saying there was urgent business. My brother sighed. "Shu Wn, don't hurry off, stay and taste them for me." I nodded, understood. "Serious matters are important, brother. Go and attend to them quickly." Not long after he left, the door was pushed open again. The newcomer wore a moon-white robe with subtle patterns, his black hair bound with a jade hairpin, impatience hidden in his brows. It was Lu Jingheng. How could he be here before I could question him? Lu Jingheng frowned and spoke coldly. "I thought Miss Lin was a person who kept her word. A few days ago I asked repeatedly, and you yourself promised you did not wish to marry into the Marquis household. Now you repay kindness with ingratitude. What does this mean? The minister's eldest daughter, is she used to such underhanded tricks?" His words were harsh. Paying no regard to my dignity, I put down my chopsticks and my expression turned cold. "Young Lord Lu, you must be mistaken. I came here accompanying my brother, not deliberately arranging a chance meeting." Lu Jingheng snorted, his face suffused with scorn. "If that's the case, Miss Lin, can you explain why your brother invited me here? Surely it was not without your consent." I was momentarily stunned. Then the reason became clear. It must be Lin Jiao, unwilling for me to enter the palace selection, who took it upon herself to invite Lu Jingheng. I rubbed my brow, feeling weary. Now, no matter how I explained, the people before me probably would not believe a word. After a while, I lifted my head and spoke each word clearly. "Young lord, there's no need to be angry. Since I promised a few days ago that I would not let this matter implicate you, I will not break my word. Besides, if you do not relent, I will have no chance of marrying into the Marquis household." Lu Jingheng's gaze turned heavy as he looked at me. His expression softened slightly. After a moment he hesitated and said, "If you truly do not wish to enter the palace, in a few days I could come and take you as a secondary consort. If Ruoqing is dignified and magnanimous, she likely would not begrudge such things." I lowered my eyes and refused without hesitation. "Thank you for your kindness, young lord, but it's unnecessary. To enter the palace and serve His Majesty would be the greatest blessing for a subject's daughter." Having reached this point, I thought Lu Jingheng should be reassured, but his face grew even darker. He narrowed his eyes, his tone probing. "Lin Xuan, Do you truly intend to enter the palace, or are you saying this to retreat strategically and compete with Ruoqing for the position of primary wife? I missed her in the last life. In this life, I will not let that happen. I realized then Lu Jingheng had been reborn as well. He sought to make up for last life's regrets. But I did not intend to repeat the same path as before. I unfastened the jade pendant I always wear and set it on the table. It was given to me by Lu Jingheng a few years ago, and I had worn it close to my body ever since. Now I pushed it across the table. I took a deep breath and said softly, "Back then, the young lord once made a promise. This item can be used to grant me one request." Before I finished, Lu Jingheng showed a look of "so that's it," and sneered as he spoke. "You want me to marry you again?" I shook my head slightly. "Not that. When the Yongning Marquis's household fell on hard times, it was my father and brother who reached out to help. If the Lin household ever falls into hardship, young lord Xiao must do for us what we once did. Now, the situation at court is full of twists and danger. In my previous life, the Prime Minister's house firmly supported the Crown Prince, but after the late Emperor's death, the regent staged a palace coup, the heir went missing, and Xiao Yu ascended. The Lin household and the Crown Prince's supporters were purged, while the Yongning Marquis's position rose because he secretly backed the regent, though Lu Jingheng pleaded for my father before the new emperor. He could not prevent the fate of the Prime Minister's decline. I did not want to interfere with my father and brother's decisions. The regent is no wise ruler. In my last life he ruled cruelly for decades, and the people suffered. If my entering the palace cannot change the outcome, then let Lu Jingheng protect the lives of everyone in our household. Hearing this, he nodded in agreement. Of course. I silently exhaled, bowed to Lu Jingheng, and was about to leave. He called after me, "Lin Xuan." I stopped. Lu Jingheng spoke with some disbelief. "You truly would rather enter the palace than be the young lord's secondary wife?" After he said it, he seemed to think of something and added indifferently, "It's useless to be angry with me." I didn't turn back. I only said, "Yes." I didn't want to interfere in his relationship with Sun Ruoqing and then be resented for a lifetime. In this life, I only want to fight for a future for the Prime Minister's household and for the realm. After leaving the tavern, as I was about to take a carriage home, I unexpectedly ran into Sun Ruoqing. Though we were not close, we had met at various banquets. I nodded lightly at her and was about to leave. Sun Ruoqing called after me, "Miss Lin." Yes, she curled her lips. Her bright face was full of schadenfreude. "I hear Miss Lin will soon enter the palace to serve His Majesty. What splendid fortune." Her tone was all mockery. I met Sun Ruoqing's gaze with a blank expression, suddenly smiled, then asked calmly, "Miss Sun, would you like to guess with whom I was dining in the tavern just now?" Although I had severed ties with Lu Jingheng, I didn't mind using him to discuss Sun Ruoqing a little before entering the palace. Her face immediately turned ugly. I continued, "Miss Sun, you're so confident. Even having the leisure to jeer at me, surely that's because Lu the young lord promised to come these days to propose, saving you from the palace selections. But how can you be sure he will keep his word?" Sun Ruoqing clenched her fists until her nails dug into her palms and said angrily, "I won't be swayed by you." I smiled silently and ignored her as she brushed past me. Sun Ruoqing suddenly fell to the ground. She looked up, pitifully, and stared at me. "Miss Lin, why are you like this? Could it be that because Master Lu plans to marry me, you purposely hurt me to vent your anger?" I didn't need to look back to know Lu Jingheng was standing right behind me. I curled my lips quickly. "Miss Sun, Master Lu isn't foolish enough to be fooled by such a trick." After saying that, I turned and left without another glance. Before long, it was time to enter the palace. After bidding farewell to my parents, I climbed into the carriage sent by the palace to escort us. Among the selected girls entering the palace, there was no daughter of Minister Sun. I vaguely remembered that it was today Lu Jingheng came to the Sun residence to propose, but none of that mattered to me anymore. The wheels rolled. When the carriage reached Juqiu Street, a procession approached from the opposite direction. It was Lu Jingheng. He rode a tall horse in a dark brocade robe, his face stern. A long retinue followed him, carrying several trunks tied with red silk. My heart stirred. And I suddenly recalled the previous life. He had come to the Lin residence to propose in the same way. The only differences were that this display was larger, and the bride he sought was not. Lu Jingheng kept his gaze straight ahead, as if he hadn't noticed the ordinary green-curtained carriage. The palace gates came into view, the vermilion doors slowly opened, and the carriages filed through. I glanced back once at the road we'd come from, on Jukyu Street. The proposal procession had already shrunk to a dot and was gradually disappearing into the morning light. Only when Lu Jingheng's party reached the Sun residence did he belatedly realize something, and a sudden unease rose in his chest. He turned to his confidant and asked, "Was the girl we passed earlier one of the girls entering the palace?" The confidant, not understanding why the young master asked, still nodded to confirm. "Yes." Lu Jingheng frowned slightly and instinctively asked, "Was Lin Xuan among them?" The moment the words left his mouth, he realized he had been overthinking. In his last life, Lin Xuan had forced him to marry her to avoid entering the palace. Moreover, she was deeply attached to him and likely had other means to avoid the selection. Thinking this, the knot in his chest slowly eased. Hearing this, the confidant shook his head. "I don't know, sir. I'll send someone to find out." Lu Jingheng nodded and did not dwell on the matter. Until I entered the Sun residence and was about to pay my respects to Minister Sun, news arrived. For the chosen candidates to enter the palace, there's Miss Lin among them. Lu Jingheng froze, his mind short-circuited at that moment, then his eyes widened with fury as he demanded, "What did you say?" His confidant bowed his head, unable to fathom his master's thoughts, and could only repeat helplessly, "Miss Lin is among those entering the palace." At that moment nothing else mattered to Lu Jingheng. He vaulted onto his horse and rushed back the way he had come. Only one thought filled his mind: he could not let Lin Xuan enter the palace. In this life he had gained Sun Ruoqing, but he did not want to lose Lin Xuan, so Lu Jingheng tucked his legs against the horse and sped up again. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. He couldn't stop it. He could only watch helplessly as the carriage entered the imperial palace, and then the vermilion gates were shut tightly. The selection took place in the Chusho Palace. Dozens of candidates lined up in 2 rows, waiting to be inspected. I stood in the middle of the line, the daughters of noble families clustered in 2s and 3s, whispering, "I heard the emperor's health is poor today, so noble consort Chun and the crown prince are choosing in his stead." The crown prince? Then isn't that, sure, quieter? I lowered my gaze and listened. My heart stirred. The selection process was simpler than I had imagined, mainly presided over by the noble consort. She didn't make things difficult, she only had the candidates come forward in turn, state their family, and answered a few questions. The crown prince sat upright without speaking. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and bowed, my voice steady. "Your servant Lin Xuan, 16 years old, father Lin Yang, holds the office of Prime Minister." Xiao Yu leaned against the chair back, his long fingers lightly tapping the armrest, and for the first time he asked, "The Prime Minister's daughter?" "Yes, I heard you and Lu Jingheng grew up together." I composed myself and, steeling my courage, answered, "Yes." Xiao Yu smiled with an inscrutable meaning and waved his hand, signaling the next candidate forward. The selection lasted the entire day. Dozens of maidens were narrowed down to just 3. I was one of them. The other 2 were the illegitimate daughter of the Vice Minister of Rights and the legitimate daughter of an editor at the Hanlin Academy. The noble consort personally drew up the roster and submitted it to the emperor. The next day, the imperial decree arrived. I was granted the rank of Gui Ren and given residence in Chengyan Hall. The hall was simply furnished, yet tasteful. I sat by the window, watching the courtyard peach blossoms fill the tree, until Qing Luo hurried in to report, "Gui Ren, the crown prince has come." I frowned slightly. In the 3 days since entering the palace, the emperor had not appeared, but Xiao Yu came to see me first. I rose to greet him. Xiao Yu had already stepped into the courtyard in a moon-white robe, idly fingering a jade pendant. "Your Highness." I knelt and performed the salute. He waved his hand and walked straight into the hall. "Lady Lin, you seem rather at leisure." The prince jests. I poured a cup of tea and handed it over. With no one in charge of the harem, This servant has nothing to do but admire the flowers and read. Xiao Yu took the teacup, sipped lightly, and looked up at me. You are not afraid of being alone. I feigned obedient demureness, lowering my gaze. Your Highness is benevolent. Why should this servant fear? The Crown Prince chuckled softly and set down the cup. He suddenly leaned closer. Lady Lin, you might as well tell me honestly. Why did you come into the palace? I was slightly startled. Xiao Yu's insight into people was sharper than I had expected. After a moment's hesitation, I spoke in a low voice. I have important matters to report. Xiao Yu sat upright in the principal's seat, his fingertips rhythmically tapping the pearwood table. His thoughts inscrutable, I revealed everything I had learned in my previous life. Though I did not dare to make absolute guarantees, after all, Lu Jingheng had also been reborn, and I could not predict what changes that might bring. After a long while, Xiao Yu looked down at me from above, his expression half smile, half not, and finally said, Lin Xuan, why should I trust you? I met his gaze without fear. Why would your Highness not trust me? Extra precautions are only more secure, are they not? Xiao Yu stared at me without answering. He then asked, what do you seek in telling me this? I answered from my heart. I ask for only two things. First, that the Prime Minister's household be kept safe. Second, that we seek a time of peace and prosperity. I was raised in the inner household and had no knowledge of strategy or governance, so I could only use the clumsiest means and act recklessly to achieve my goals. After a long while, Xiao Yu let out a faint laugh and said lightly, I understand. After that day, I did not see the Crown Prince again. Days passed, and life in the palace was far quieter than I had imagined. The Emperor was gravely ill, lying on the dragon couch all day and barely able to rise. Naturally without the mood to summon concubines, tensions among the factions of the previous court permeated even the harem, so no one paid much attention to a few newly arrived women. I was content with the freedom, even without deliberately inquiring. I learned by chance that the Emperor's illness had worsened. In my previous life at this point, though his body was weak, he was still able to attend court. Thinking it over, I took up my brush and wrote a letter, which I had Qing Luo secretly deliver to Xiao Yu. In May the weather gradually warmed, the peach blossoms outside the Cheng'an Hall had fallen, and the pomegranate flowers were in full bloom, a blaze of red like burning fire. I sat under the tree to cool off, holding a scroll, feeling drowsy. Suddenly the courtyard gate was pushed open and footsteps approached. I opened my eyes and saw Lu Jingheng. He wore a deep blue official robe, a jade hairpin in his hair, his features stern. Seeing me, his steps faltered slightly. Then he strode over. Lady Lin, what refined tastes you have. His tone was laced with sarcasm. I frowned and reminded him, the harem is not a place for outside officials. Lu Jingheng pretended not to hear. He stared at me, and after a moment he sighed helplessly. Lin Xuan, married to me all those years, I never thought I would neglect you. You shouldn't have come to the palace out of spite. I looked at Lu Jingheng in confusion, finding him strange. In the last life he was the one who told me not to cling to him. Now he was the one wanting to renew our ties, speaking all the flattering and pleading words. Not long ago he had married Sun Ruoqing in a grand ceremony, reportedly a spectacle with 10 miles of bridal red. The Hu residence surrounded so tightly it was impassable, packed with onlookers. The event even caused an uproar in the harem, and now he put on this wistful look as if he couldn't forget me. The sight made me nauseous. I closed my eyes again, unwilling to look at Lu Jingheng, and said coldly, entering the palace was not out of spite. Young Master Lu, don't make baseless guesses. Please go. Lu Jingheng gave me a long look and left a few meaningful words as he turned to go. I'll come to fetch you out of the palace in a few days, but with your status as a twice-married woman, you can no longer be a secondary consort, you can only be a concubine. I took a deep breath and snapped, get out. Then I told Qing Luo to keep the courtyard gate more tightly guarded from now on, lest anyone spoil my mood. No sooner had Qing Luo left than a figure slowly emerged from the shadows. It was Xiao Yu. He strode toward me, his expression unreadable, and said meaningfully, it seems young Master Lu still can't forget the noble consort. He had seen everything that had just happened. I lowered my eyes and bowed to Xiao Yu. Your Highness need not probe. Xiao Yu narrowed his eyes and closed the distance between us until only a fist's length remained. It was too close. His warm breath brushed my hair as he murmured, "Lady Lin is smarter than I expected." I stepped back a few paces. "Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness. I suppose you came because of that letter. Let us discuss business." I told Xiao Yu frankly my suspicions and the possible troop dispositions of the regent. Xiao Yu listened, nodded slightly, and did not say more. He only ordered his personal guards to protect the Lin residence. Then he added, "These next few days, there may be great chaos in the palace. Stay obediently in Cheng'an Hall. Do not go out. I will leave covert guards to ensure your safety." My heart warmed. "Thank you, Your Highness." After watching Xiao Yu leave, I let out a long sigh. In the following days, the palace seemed calm on the surface, but undercurrents churned. I vaguely sensed that the imperial guards defending the city were being rotated more frequently, and more unfamiliar faces appeared around Xiao Yu. Qing Luo went out each day to gather news and always returned with fragments of information. On the fifth night, just as I was about to rest, I suddenly heard hurried footsteps and the clanging of weapons outside the palace walls. "Miss." Qing Luo pushed the door in panic. "Something's happened. Someone has led troops into the palace." My heart dropped, but I calmly ordered, "Close the courtyard gate, extinguish the lights." Yes, in the dark, I sat by the window, listening to the increasing commotion outside. Shouts of battle, screams, the clash of weapons, mingled together, coming from the direction of the palace gate. Only in the latter half of the night did things gradually quiet down. I had no informants in the palace and did not know what was happening outside. I only clenched the handkerchief in my hand, my fingertips slightly cold. After about another half hour, someone knocked on the courtyard gate. It was one of Xiao Yu's attendants. He said respectfully, "Honored lady, the Crown Prince requests your presence." We went all the way to the front of Yangshan Hall. Xiao Yu stood at the gate in armor, stained with blood, his face stern. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" "It is not my blood," he said calmly. "The regent and Lu Jingheng led troops to force the palace and have been captured." I breathed a sigh of relief and only then realized my back was soaked with cold sweat. "Your Highness is mighty." Not far off, I saw a familiar figure, Lu Jingheng, bound like a zongzi. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked at me in disbelief. "Lin Xuan, you sided with the Crown Prince." I showed little expression. "The Lin family is of the Crown Prince's faction. Did you only learn that today, young lord?" Lu Jingheng's lips trembled as if murmuring to himself, Why help Xiao Yu? Couldn't we be like in our previous life?" I shook my head. "No. I don't want to be hated for a lifetime." Lu Jingheng, visibly startled, then belatedly realized, he seemed to have deceived even himself. In the last life, he clearly had countless opportunities to tell Sun Ruoqing that she was the one he loved. Lin Xuan was not an unreasonable person. Upon learning the situation, she would not have forced him to marry her. I was too greedy, wanting both my childhood sweetheart and the unattainable white moonlight, unwilling to let either go, which led to the outcome now. A tear traced down the corner of Lu Jingheng's eye as he stared at me without blinking and said hoarsely, "In my last life I was foolish. I mistook kindness for coercion and wrongly directed my resentment at you. Ruoqing's matter was not your fault at all." There seemed to be remorse in his eyes. "Xuan, it was my fault, but my feelings for you were genuine." I cut him off calmly. "Your genuine feelings are truly nauseating." Then I looked at Xiao Yu. "Your Highness, how should a traitor be dealt with? Execute without mercy. Then let me escort him on his final walk." "Do it." The moment the long sword pierced Lu Jingheng's heart, he tilted his head back slightly, his expression complicated, staring at me without blinking. Regret, guilt, terror, and even a faint, negligible trace of love. I pretended not to see any of it. The next day, the news spread through the former dynasty's inner court. The regent had conspired with the heir of the Yongning Marquis, Lu Jingheng, to force the throne and was caught red-handed by the Crown Prince. After the regent was executed, the court situation quickly clarified. Those who had attached themselves to the regent were purged one by one. The Yongning Marquis's residence did not escape, The Marquis household was exiled to Lingnan, never to return to the capital. As for the Sun family, because of their marital ties to Lu Jingheng, they were implicated as well. Minister Sun was dismissed from office, and Sun Ruoqing lost her support. Rumor had it she would soon be exiled to the border. Days passed one by one, the emperor's health worsened, and Xiao Yu, acting as crown prince, governed in his stead and handled state affairs. He would occasionally come to the Chengyan Hall to sit for a while, have a cup of tea, and exchange a few words. He never mentioned that night, nor Lu Jingheng. Once, however, he suddenly asked, "Lin Xuan, do you regret entering the palace?" I thought for a moment and shook my head. "No, I don't regret it." He smiled briefly and said no more. Another month passed, and the emperor died. Xiao Yu ascended the throne and changed the era name to Yong'an on the third day after Emperor Yong'an took the throne. He issued an edict summoning me to the imperial study. I changed into a plain, clean outfit and followed the eunuch there. Inside the study, Xiao Yu sat behind the dragon desk, reviewing memorials. When he saw me enter, he set down his brush and pointed to a chair beside him. "Sit." I obeyed and sat. He looked at me for a moment, then suddenly spoke. "Lin Xuan, you have accomplished great deeds. What reward would you like?" I was about to speak when Xiao Yu anticipated me. "How about becoming empress?" I was taken aback. The Son of Heaven's expression was serious. It did not seem a joke. I was silent for a while and gently shook my head. "Your Majesty is too kind. Your subject does not dare accept." Xiao Yu frowned. "Why? Your subject does not wish it." I had grown up in the inner court and then spent my adult years trapped within it. For the rest of my life, I did not want to live behind airtight palace walls again. The imperial study was silent for a moment. Xiao Yu stared at me, emotions churning in his eyes. After a long while, he sneered coldly. "Lin Xuan, you are ungrateful. Your subject only asks for freedom." I raised my head and said calmly, "If His Majesty truly wishes to reward me, then release me from the palace." Xiao Yu's face darkened. "Impertinent." He abruptly stood, his sleeve sweeping the teacup from the dragon desk. The sound of porcelain shattering was especially harsh in the hall. I knelt and saluted, saying nothing. "Xiao." Yu looked down at me, his chest heaving violently. After a long time, he said coldly, "Get out." I rose and left. As I exited the imperial study, Qing Luo came to meet me. Seeing my calm expression, she asked cautiously, "Noble lady, what did His Majesty say?" "Nothing much," I replied lightly. I thought I would be consigned to a cold, neglected corner, or be casually put in some remote courtyard. But a few days later, an imperial edict arrived at the Chengyan Hall, not a demotion, but permission for me to leave the palace. I had judged him correctly. Xiao Yu truly is fit to be a wise ruler. The edict was politely worded, stating that Lady Lin was unwell and unfit to remain in the palace, and she was specially permitted to return home to recuperate. I stared at the edict for a long time. Qing Luo cried with joy, "Miss, you are free." I nodded, feeling a swirl of emotions. On the day I left the palace, I did not go to see Xiao Yu. I only had an eunuch deliver a letter. It contained just 4 characters. "May your Majesty take care." The carriage slowly passed through the palace gate. I lifted the curtain and looked back at the grand imperial city. The vermilion gates closed slowly behind me. In my previous life, I was trapped in a marquisate and faded away. In this life, I entered the palace and then I left. The rest of my life finally belonged to me. The carriage did not return to the Lin residence but headed straight out of the capital. My elder brother escorted me on horseback. For part of the way, he was silent for a long time before saying, "Shu Wn, are you really going to Jiangnan?" "Yes," I nodded. "My maternal family is there. I'll stay with them for a while." "But you're a woman, brother." "Don't worry," I cut him off, "I'll take care of myself." Lin Zhao sighed and did not try to persuade me further. He knew my nature. Once I made a decision, no one could change my mind. After traveling for 3 days, we reached the ferry crossing. I got down from the carriage, stood by the river, and watched the surging waters. In my previous life, I was sent to a rural estate and died in obscurity. Before I died, I once thought that if there were a next life, I must visit Jiangnan. There are small bridges and flowing water there, misty rain, And the places I had dreamed of my whole life but never managed to reach. Miss Ching Luo pointed cheerfully at a passenger boat on the river. The boat's here. I glanced back toward the road we'd come, the direction of the capital already hidden by green hills. Let's go. I withdrew my gaze, lifted my skirt, and stepped onto the boat. As the boat left the shore, the river breeze brushed my face, bringing a touch of coolness. Ching Luo was packing in the cabin when she suddenly exclaimed, "Miss, look at this." She handed me a brocade box. I opened it and found a stack of silver notes and a slip of paper. The handwriting on the note was Xiao Yu's. "Take care." I held the note and was silent for a long time. The boat drifted farther away, the shoreline growing dimmer. I put the note away, left the cabin, and stood at the bow. The river stretched vast and endlessly. Ahead lay Jiangnan, freedom, and a rebirth I had never had in this life. I owe no one anything, and I will not be trapped by anyone again.